Before we begin, if this resonates, please like, subscribe, and share. It helps us grow the conversation and meet this epochal moment together, where something new is arising in humanity. Welcome to Portals of Perception and to this epochal moment and experimental forum. The question and inquiry we put before us today, and for which I have asked a circle of friends in a short notice to respond to, is an inquiry about what is the work of being human at this time, and what is the inner work that you feel called to at this time. We do have some friends who live in a region where there may be sirens mid-conversation and they may disappear off the screen. And guess what? That's part of the challenges of being human at this time, in the face of which we are framing our inquiry. So I'm about to offer a concise threefold context to the specificity of the inquiry today. The first context is the large overarching story of the epoch that we have been tracing on several portals conversations, where we essentially are painting a picture that we are living into time where one epoch is ending and a new epoch is beginning, and that the transition is experienced as profound intensification that is quite confusing and for many overwhelming, for many good reasons. So that's context one, to say, well, in the face of that, what is the inner work that we are each called into? The second context is that even just a few decades ago, certainly still the late 20th century, you could live with the assumption that somebody was in the now, that there was some political elite or economic elite or academic elite or philosophical elite, where there were smart people who were in the now, who had a deep perspective about humanity, where we are, what is occurring on the planet, and could offer guidance and direction to the evolving human story. So we could imagine, as I'm suggesting just a few decades ago, that there were people who were in the now. Now we know that it was either an illusion or a facade. And that's part of the, if you like, the chaotic nature of this time. It's clear that everybody is in the fog, including people who are in leadership positions, in very influential positions all over the world, heads of states, heads of important organizations, and so on. The other side of that is that it reveals to us how powerful we are. Because if we can no longer trust that somebody else is in the now, well, at least we are invited to be in the know in relation to ourselves, to set the direction of our own lives. So it is in that context too that we are asking, what is the work we're being called to, the inner work of being alive at this time? The third context for this inquiry is the realization that we are in the middle of a rolling event whereby humanity is already and is about to, even more so, hand over a large portion, a significant portion of our cognitive function to the frontier, and soon not just the frontier, AI engines that are predicting what we need to think through their inferencing models. And there is a deep sense that we are facing, humanity that is, we are facing a Solomon test as to whether we can still be humans in the future, or whether we will surrender the line of the human model into something else that is silicon-based rather than carbon-based. And the challenge is, well, if we are to preserve our humanity, if we are to rediscover the significance of being humans, where will it begin? Well, I propose it begins with the interior work we each choose to engage in. So this is how and why these threefold contexts. We are in time of tremendous epochal change. We are in times that it's clear that nobody knows. We no longer have the illusions that somebody is in the know. And we are in times where we are handing over to AI machines the responsibility for a significant portion of the human cognitive function. In the face of these three conundrums, what is the inner work we humans are called into at this time? And the suggestion and the invitation into this forum is to offer one or two key elements, and for us to go one after another and build a mosaic of invitation to our fellow humans to be encouraged, to be fortified, to find each for themselves what is it that we are called into in terms of our interior work. So that would be my framing, and I'd invite whoever is ready to get us started to begin.
Yeah, one of the things that has been helping me recently is this the idea. I came across the phrase recently, probably in a Portals conversation, and it was somebody said the process of living. And at that moment, it just shifted for me, and I started thinking about it as a living process. And so I've been kind of holding on to that idea. And so as my day proceeds, I've been, on Portals, we're always saying, keep the inquiries open, keep asking more questions to deepen our understanding and connections to the intelligence of the answers. And so I ask, how do I want to be in this situation? Or I ask, what is my desired outcome? And that tells me, because if I look at what my desired outcome is, then I'm going to say, well, how do I need to be to get there? So that it's this kind of internal way of being in relationship to the things I'm doing. And that could be in a conversation with somebody who is looking for guidance, or however it might be. But so I'm just looking at what is my process in my interactions, in my ongoing daily life, and you can really feel certain uplifts inside when something resonates about an idea or an answer or a direction. You can feel that resonance inside you. It gives you a hint for your direction. So I would offer that.
I happen to be here, one of the two people that live in Israel. So my particular experience at this time is quite unique and challenging. It's a real experience of what us people and humanity by large is experiencing and facing in real time. So I would say that one of the threats that I find myself positioned against is hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Not always this dualistic view, which we try to move away from usually, is so upfront. And it calls for a different realignment or adjustment to the pressures that belong to it and to the questions that are rising because of the situation. So for sure, I'm trying to keep the line of hoping for the best for humanity in terms of evolution, a better future to keep it alive at all times. Because I do believe eventually evolution always wins. But at the same time, I cannot disregard the nature of the concern that appears because of the expression of the human condition that plays itself out at this time. And the struggle between these two vectors, two forces, so it seems on face value, it's a huge struggle. The forces that wish to assist humanity to progress, and what seems to be everything else that is trying to stop it from happening. So in terms of inner work, it simply says keeping sane, keeping balanced, and being able to live inside this contradiction, to find a higher place, higher view that is able to contain and maintain this apparent contradiction. Thank you.
I'd like to start with just a little analogy, which is that I'm sitting in a concert hall watching the musicians, and I'm supporting the people who are playing their different instruments, wanting the best from them, wanting the best from the conductor. And then somebody calls out fire. And everything changes because now I have a different, completely different set of requirements at the point. And I find myself in Israel being in a situation of people constantly calling fire. So part of what I'm doing at the moment is saying to myself and enacting, what is it that I need to be as I influence the people around me who are suffering stress, suffering fear, suffering all sorts of difficulty. And it's to do with my own being centered, settled, in well-being as much as I possibly can. So that when I move into a shelter, for instance, that's what I'm carrying. And just as an example, the last time I went to the shelter, we ended up singing songs together, which was initiated because I'd mentioned Buddy Holly and American Pie. And when the siren said, "You can go out," two of us didn't want to because we were still in the discussion about what Don McLean's words meant. So it's curious, but that's what I'd like to share at the beginning.
I have the privilege to not be in an area where there is conflict. I believe there's a development that I think as a human race we are called for right now. So I would like to speak to those cycle breakers out there. You will know who you are, where you are and have been for some time, addressing your own inner reactivities. It could be trauma woundings. It could be integrating polarities. So I think as a message for this time, I would say for each of us, taking responsibility for our own inner response to whatever comes our way is a way where we can contribute. And I believe there are those of us who have chosen to be cycle breakers at this time. And with that comes a development. There could be trauma, healing work. It could be elevating through to really determine who you choose to become in the face of challenge and pressure. But either way, I would say this is the time to really hold to that line. And all the work you have done over the years is culminating at these times. So if you feel things are flaring or getting more intense, it is simply a reflection of a greater dynamic, but coming through in a way where you can play your part and be one of those, I believe, many millions of people who are here to do this work at this time. So I would say, hold strong, hold faith, take a deep breath, and continue on.
Hello. One of the things that I find myself doing in these critical times of challenge is trying to be forensic and trying to read events from the perspective of the epochal evolution, and trying to not be arrested in the in this crazy cycle of news that kind of the never-ending drama of the human story, but try to see what is behind it in a way, and opening questions, very much as Peter said, and with friends. So together with friends, come and ask various questions and try to approach them beyond the obvious, let's say, which is more the exoteric reasons of, let's say, the economic reasons or the sociopolitical, geopolitical, which are all true. But try to find more core reasons that have to do with how we think, how we respond, as Orla said, with cycles that we might be repeating, and loops in the human psyche that we fall in. And this helps to be a bit detached from the reactivity of the emotional kind of flares that happen, which are absolutely human and absolutely natural. But they may cause this fog that Aviv was saying in the mind. So how to try to diminish a bit this fog. And something that helps me very much in this is my love for his story and her story. And yeah, to see beyond the now. So to travel in time and see that there were similar events happening in the past, like they do now, and how they affected the human psyche or the human story. So, yeah, for example, in 1440, the discovery of the printing press was the printing revolution was maybe the most important event in the second millennium, not only because it increased mass literacy and it helped the spread of ideas. I mean, about 15 million books were sold only in the first years, most of them Bible and Martin Luther's 95 Theses. But this spread of ideas that happened propelled the Renaissance, propelled the Reformation, and basically established the languages, standardized the way we write, but they changed the human model. They changed the way we think, the way we socialize, the way we address religion, the access that we have in the religious texts and in scientific text, in music text, the way that we can write and be authors of text, the way we converse, so one event had a domino effect, and maybe it's the same with the AI. And through the Epochal, we say that it was the green wave that allowed the blue wave of modern system. So, for example, addressing the issue of AI or addressing other geopolitical issues through this lens brings an understanding or an effort to understand, or a platform, or just the different lenses that allow a coolness and allow a neutrality of how to read the events. Also to see the multiple effects of the events in multiple layers and levels. And in this, my friends, you and others, they help me see different perspectives. So they help me get out of the possession of the moment or of the upheaval of the moment. So that's what I would say.
Myself, I'm very occupied this period of time with the new reality that you mentioned, Aviv, before, that humanity is about to hand over part of our function to the AI machines. And I'm investigating this every day almost, because I think it is vital for someone, and I'm speaking initially for myself, to try to create a space within oneself, not to become isolated from the world and what is going on, but to find the center of gravity of one's existence, and from there to be able to make choices. Because the idea of choice is part of what it means to be human. It is inherent in human nature, and in the world today, with all the big changes happening, we need or we are called to make a choice a stronger part of our lives if we want to survive. It's almost a survival thing. And for example, there is a lot of talk about our relationship with the artificial intelligence and the machines, which are omnipresent. I mean, they are everywhere in all aspects of modern life. And it must be a criterion to have a criterion for making choices regarding this relationship with the machine, so we do not lose our humanity. And yeah, I mean, there are many examples we can trace, but this is what I would offer now for now.
Hello, everyone. It's clear that we're born into a time of change, a time of crisis. Yet, I look at the planet and apart from one thing, it's working fine. There's one thing out of place, humanity. And I think the definition of a cancerous cell is a cell that doesn't support the needs of its host. And it causes me to think, well, I'm a human. What are the needs of the host, the planet on which I live, and the universe? So it reflects me back on myself. Especially in the area of choice, like Sophia just mentioned. Because I realized, it was just the other day, I realized whatever created us gave us choice. And I hadn't realized, but inside that choice is a huge trust from whatever created us. So it says to me, I need to trust in myself if I can align correctly, and others. And I look at my design and it's very specific, and that says to me it's got a very specific function. It seems it works that way. When something has a particular design, it suggests a function. So it propels me into what is my function. And it also propels me into deciding what I will allow my systems to process. Because like any machine, if you don't put the right fuel in, it doesn't work so well. And the other feature I'm really feeling at the moment is if I think I'm alone, I get stressed and it's all too much. But just support from another, support from others can change that, can change my capability. So I feel like reach out to others because together we can do so much. Alone, we can do so little. Thank you.
Here we are, 15 lives today, and listening to you all, it feels like we're such a microcosm of the great macrocosm that is humanity. And one area that is, I suppose, very poignant for me is living with the uncertainty of the world as it is. And, you know, our political leaders or our thinkers might think, well, we need to go back to the steadiness of maybe what it was like in the 60s or 70s. And it's a whole world. I mean, some of us were born then and lived then and understand what it's like. So I thought my first sense to me was to try and educate myself as much as possible in the ways of the world, from all standpoints, from the overtly political, socio-economic to esoterically how things, what the undercurrent of life is and how it influences. I also made health one of my specialist areas because I knew that I needed to be strong and I needed to help other people to not be a further victim by not having the physical strength and resilience to be strong and aware and effective in this time. So, what did it mean to me living in uncertainty? What does it mean to me? Actually, it's very freeing. If I lay all my well-planned ideas, if I lay them on the ground and just be in another process, in a world that isn't part of the programming that I was brought up with and the oppression of the schooling, the ideas given to us by people who don't know any better, which is really oppression on the human spirit, because in a way we never began to develop who and what we are other than a socioeconomic animal, that, not animal, human, that goes to school, gets a job, and is defined by that. Both we define ourselves and we define others. So the journey, and I think part of working with other people, has to reawaken the fact that we're an electromagnetic being with a spirit, and that the body really is a vehicle to get us through these times and to help us grow. And this growth is not without its challenges, as I'm sure we all know from listening to our various stories. So for me, it's to stay in the aspect of not appreciating the circumstance, taking up the challenge, staying strong and healthy, and having a life that's maybe dedicated towards something else, which I'm still finding out about.
I'm confronted with the fact that it seemed a very multi-layered inquiry. From one point, one aspect of it is how much can I really deal with the reality of it? Opposite to other countries, I live in a welfare state. Very comfortable for most people, and very easy to fall asleep into. And if fire would break out, people would not know what to do in this country. They might as well zip their telephone in the hope that another television program would enter the scene. And one of the things which makes me realize is how much can I really handle reality? Because whether I like it or not, part of my life is dependent upon it. Yeah, so that's one, but that's only one life. That's only because on the other hand, you've got the securing knowing that life and humanity is a permanent line, is a purposeful and although not given much credence to in the world, it's factual for me. So that are two lives, which both need their care. They both need their they both need to, in a way, get the right attention. Too much of the reality won't help in this world. It will cause the petrification and fear and too less reality will cause daydreams. So there needs to be, in a way, a purposeful balance, between seeing the challenges of this world, and I think I think really what the world, of course, is missing is this purposeful view, which brings us in a way to the now, because most worldly purposeful views have to do with petrifications from the past. This is my view of how the world should be as a liberal, or as a Catholic, or as a so-and-so and so-and-so. But we forgot, in a way, the natural human purpose as a prime, as a, how it's called, collective binding possibility, and finding reasons to engage with the challenges. And because the only and that brought me to what kind of other work. And I choose in this occasion the work on ethics and conscience as to be very important, almost like very important features to get the compass right in challenging times. Because the most remarkable persons who had to operate or deal with very bad circumstances are often recognized by the ethics and the conscience they had about the situation. That's it.
Hello, everyone. It's like a mosaic, listening to what everybody brings to the introduction that Aviv did. And I find it moving that there is something in me that responds to everything that's being said, and at the same time, there's so many ways to come at it. And I think I felt for myself, I came at it from a very practical point of view. So I wake up in the morning, I get up, and what do I do as inner work to find my way through the day in these times that are, as everybody already said, wherever you live, we have these things we meet in the day that need to be addressed, that throw us off balance, that cause responses. And as Ruud says, I'm from the same country, so I know how easily you fall asleep here. But we have our challenges here as well, because it's about living in these times. And I do believe that wherever you are on the planet, you feel what is happening and you get triggered and you get involved in it. And it's up to you, as some of us already mentioned, how you choose to be in that. And one of the things that really helps me is to get up and start my day for me. So I draw it in the whole notion of lightness, because there's a lot of heaviness in the world. So the English lightness is both the opposite of heavy, but also the opposite of dark. So I try to find both facets in my life. I try to, as Helena said, I try to appraise my health and my situation. I try to be grateful for what is around me, what is with me. And I try to become lighter, because I feel these are times to say goodbye to stuff that doesn't belong anymore. So it's in physical realms. I have a house packed with stuff that mostly doesn't belong anymore. You never quite got to it, to actually do away with things. But it's also in myself, all these things that you do feel that don't belong anymore. And the inner work is just to sit with it and thank it for, having been there, but not being of use anymore. So it's a slightly different angle from what's been said before, but it works really well for me. And then having done a kind of process, and sometimes it's much shorter than other times because days are very different. But just to have that note at the beginning of the day and then open the news app and then see if the world is still there, or if something dramatic happens that you really need to know, because you need to be informed as well. But not to start the day there. So that's what I would want to bring in.
I'm going to piggyback on top of the place you came from, Anita, because it was very much in me as well. I guess the overview of what I'm going to say, and there's just two main points. But where I'm coming from is at this time in my life, the ongoing practice and process of recalibrating constantly, because things are constantly changing. And that's one. And in order to do so for me, and that's as a 70-year-old male who grew up in America, and I don't assume it's the same for anyone else in any country, man, woman, or whatever, but there's the ongoing need just to do a call over of slowing down, because I've just noticed that as things speed up in the world, I can get caught up in it. So it's a reminder to I'm just doing it now, sorry. Slow down a little and cool down and recalibrate yet again. And then the third part of it is to do with what I'll title wondering, which is a kind of open-ended admission of, I don't know everything that's going on. I don't always know everything. I don't always know. I hardly ever know everything about people I meet. Although if I keep up with recalibrations, I can learn more. So this brings me to the two practices, and one is a morning practice. And I would title it, what did I write down? Internal landscape registrations. So my lady and I recently moved. We moved across America, moved into a new place. It sits on a little pond. And when I walk into the kitchen and put the water on for coffee, I put up a big blind. I don't know what they call them. Not a curtain, but it's actually something you raise up. And I look out into the pond and I scan the pond. It's a morning devotion. And it's a metaphor, but it's actually a full 3D process. And what I'm scanning for is some of the amazing birds and wildlife that live on this pond. And there's all kinds. There's the long-legged ones, there's the floating ones, the diving ducks, the floating ducks, dabbling ducks, they're called. There are short-legged birds, there's the ones overhead. And sometimes when I look out, I can't clearly discern where they are. What I've learned over the last few months, there's always something going on. It's, can I make the ecology inside me that finds the eyes that allows them to appear to me or for me to see them? And I would mention that often that means I have to slow down again. And I can listen to them, and then I try and make sense of why are those herons and the sandhill cranes on the other side of the pond? Or why are those up in that pine tree? Or why are some of these God's little people, these amazing little life forms? And God knows what intelligence has caused them to be with their colors and different forms. But why are they close to the house on that morning? So, okay, and I do this every morning. And what's happened is now there's another dimension to the this internal landscape registration, which is I then begin scanning internally in me. Is there a hangover from the previous day? I do not mean alcohol. I mean, is there some dealing I had that's I need to tend to? Is there a song I left unfinished that's calling to me that, like now, that needs attention now? Is there correspondence with a specific person who's appearing as I need to engage or write or call or just mentally address? Which of my systems seem most prime? Which senses seem most prime? Which way am I looking? Is it forward? Is it backwards? So that's that. I'm going to do the last part very briefly because it's so important. I'm very encouraged by today's call because I think anyone, well, I would hope anyone who sees it knows they aren't on their own. That they can see other people trying to make sense of what's going on with some intelligence, some practical applications assisting. Plus, draw on the strength of all the humans who have regeneratively and purposefully added in history, and those who we may not know, almost like birds you can hear but you can't see, but the other humans all around the planet who are also purposefully, regeneratively generating. So the last point is to do with my small dealings with human beings who I come into physical contact with, wherever it is. In the supermarket, in the drugstore, in eye contact as I'm driving. It's those little micro moments. And the process is wondering what I can detect, register, discern in them that I support. You've heard others on this call mention this. And I want to support their kindness, their care, their curiosity, their looking after others, the way they provide service in whatever job they might have or whatever interaction they're having. So the internal landscape and the external exterior landscape, registrations and confirmation. And that's what I'll say today.
I find the question compelling and awkward, as in, I don't actually know the answer, which is a challenge for it's reassuring to have answers, and it's reassuring to have a kind of a certainty. But that's not the case here. And so there's a space. And the space feels like walking into the desert, like being invited onto a desert walk. And the desert feels like the space between who I have been and who I am not yet. And it feels like a necessary space to make the separation between those two inner worlds of oneself. And the desert allows space, time, letting go, being with oneself, being with a feeling of peace, which might be awkward or challenging for the parts of oneself, the psychologies of oneself that are quick and fast or reactive or knowing. It's like, okay, well, can we leave those behind or let them go? Because we may not need them anymore. Okay. A new reality dawns. And the space is expansive, not contracting. And one of the compelling features about it is that in the distance, there is the like the appearance of the lights of oneself that have not yet been lit up. And there is a deep, compelling attraction to those lights, as if this is the future self beckoning. And the feeling of being drawn towards this, who you are not yet, the future self, overwrites the challenge of letting go of those parts of oneself which no longer are needed for the journey. And then also appearing on the journey are like versions of oneself at different ages, like the enthusiasm of 7-year-old self, or the increasing awareness of 15-year-old self, or the freedom of 21-year-old self. As if at certain points down the line of life, qualities, characteristics, moments became lodged that would come to join oneself at like this critical part of the journey. Not separated out from oneself, but gathering oneself to oneself to be ready for the what next. So it feels like a living, breathing space of, on the surface, might appear to be nothingness. But that would be deceptive because, like being in the womb, it's the state before the next appearance, the next something. To wait with, abide with, be with, hold to, be steady, and learn to live in the gap before the appearance of the next version of oneself, whatever that may be or look like. So the desert journey, natural, but also deeply reflective.
It is fascinating to look at the table of plenty that is growing, just with each contribution. And whatever it is, one of the challenges is I need to find something that works for me. It's absolutely fantastic to be, listening to the richness of each life, and in what way it helps to make the next step, to overcome or to journey through the day, whatever it needs. But that's part of the struggle of each life, because it's unique and individual. Something I found still struggling with is so much in life seems to be located in the physical worlds, in what is tangible, what you can understand, what proof it has received, there may be even proof from science. And looking to these times, it's also to hear about those events that are loud enough and made it to the news or made it to the program of television or whatsoever. And the skill is, how can I gently move myself to that part which I can't see physically yet, what I can't touch on physically yet, but where there is the feeling sense, something new is appearance, something that is offering a next new opportunity, what is still unknown to me, and what at times leaves the sense of uncertainty and not knowing where to move, where to put the next step. So it takes or it calls for the need to find new ways to move or deeper or re-enliven in a new way what I actually believe in, what I trust in, although there isn't any physical proof yet. But also because I know from experience, there is this life, or the life of truth inside, which can lead me. It's just, I have to discover it in new ways and learn to trust it. So for me, it's a journey to find new ways to strengthen this trust in what is real, although I cannot see it yet, or it's not talked about yet. What also helps, of course, is being with friends, asking other people to be able to look from a different view. But it's a journey, and it's finding what works for me. So I leave it here.
I find what's going on incredibly settling and easing. We're listening to the different approaches, the different views. So I'm going to put in the hard bit. Not for that reason, simply because it rose. And it was I think these changing times, these stirring times, also bring up, in me at least, patterns from history which block my way to settlement, to easement, to well-being, to the location where I can actually look at things afresh. And one of the ones that I am looking at the moment, and I'm attempting to look at it without judging it, is something that I find common. I teach a few children, and I find it in them. And I meet with a lot of people, and when they let their guard down, I see it in them as well. So it's fairly prevalent, and that is, I'm not good enough. And so, and when I look at the things that make me think that I'm not good enough, things like, what's the expression? I'll say it simply. I can't think of the expression. That sin. I've got it. Sins of omission and sins of commission, which means the things that I haven't done that I thought I should have done, the things I have done that I wish I hadn't done, and the sense that maybe I haven't done what I could have done given where I began. So can I look at that, first of all, without judging? And I can't even look cleanly unless I settle myself first. So that's one of my practices, ongoingly, to move from unsettlement to settlement in a variety of ways. I have, for instance, a place I go to in the village here where I sit, and because it's been a constancy in me, I am joined by a sense of well-being and ease when I arrive. And in that place, I can look clearly at things rather than from my often judgmental stance of self. So I'm looking at that. I'm looking at you're not good enough and how to deal with that. I'm even looking at its roots, trying to I'm trying to think of the words keep missing, disappearing today, but trying to get rid of the roots, trying to cause them to wither away so that I can be a new, cleaner me to meet the future. And when Martin was speaking, I thought to myself, that sounds great, but I often sit in this pause situation thinking, yeah, but what the hell should I do? What should I be doing? I can't just sit here doing nothing. There must be something. And there's a danger in that because I get to do things to fill in the space or to compensate rather than to do what I'm moved by. So I think I'm doing a lot of observing of self and patterns and trying to find ways of diffusing those patterns. Starve them of their food. I know that, for instance, trying to run away from them doesn't starve them, it feeds them. Trying to defeat them doesn't starve them, it feeds them. It's a little bit difficult, but I'm wending slowly my way through that. And I think in terms of this time and this change in the epoch, I think probably it's throwing it up for a lot of people. And I also think I'm not good enough. It's a disease that lives in many, many corners of the world and is a cause of a whole ripple of devastating effects. So, yes.
Thank you for that, Bob. That's wonderful.
because that's part of reality too. I think I want to mention the thing that happens when in this time of intensity, there's a lot that can be stirred and will be stirred, both externally as well as internally. And I just want to say a couple of things about the internal part. And I find these days that when I can be in the stillness of myself and in the quietness of myself, somehow it's easier to look at things, to register them, and to feel them, but also to gain a different appreciation about what may be not so fortunate that is being stirred. And actually begin to appreciate that part that I may feel awkward about or wish it would not have been there, but it is. And it's just in that moment that I make my peace with it, only because I'm quiet and have the time. And it's sometimes these days, it begins to happen when I am with friends. In the being with friends, and we can share these moments, there's a huge blessing almost that one can share with another. A feeling of perhaps found in a place of humility because you have looked at something. And feeling it's almost like a feeling of not so important, being not so important oneself. But if I can then register that feeling, it's actually a softer feeling, much, much softer. And it's a bit like that when I listen to all of you and listen to myself inside it, that I see the uniqueness, complete uniqueness of everyone's journey, although I am not in it. But it's, in a way, it is something that I begin to appreciate my own journey, appreciate other journeys, but somehow it begins to become important to appreciate my own journey inside it because of its uniqueness. And somehow that is something I begin to see as very important, because I am one gateway, like all of us is one gateway, through which things can be resolved, can enter, can find a resolution, can find its expression.
For all these threads of living experience and your unique contributions, each one of you. This was the experiment we invited today. The search not for anything formulaic. We live in a very heady time, very conceptual time. And we wanted to step back from theories and concepts to, as Peter started, the living experience, the experience of living a life. And so it's enriching to experience the weave of those many threads. I experience the threads, the ways, the interior work of doing the work of purpose, of being intentional, of choosing to center yourself in the moment to moment of life with saying, what does it need from me? How do I choose to be in this moment? And many other adjacent ways that evoke in you a sense of purposeful alignment. I hear the work of living on the inside through the line of wanting and seeking to be of service. Service to the ecology we are in, service to the people we are with, service to the need of another in a moment of exchange. The sentiment of that, the interior ecology that will allow us to even calibrate and register and acknowledge and offer a response to that. And I hear the work on the inside of living a life that's forever in this interior balance of settlement and unsettlement, in the search for continual discovery, continual growth, continual development, continual discovery of what does it mean to be human and become human in a new way as one epoch is shifting into another. So there is an experience I'm getting here today of how we are each a part of the discovery laboratory of life. Life gets a unique chance to be deciphered, to be discovered, to be liberated through the unique combination that we each are. And in this, the range of the interior work is as rich as the mosaic, the kaleidoscope of people that we are. Some of you are describing centering, location that allows for things to settle down. Some of you are describing how you are becoming an agent of support and help and healing for others. Some of you are describing how you are doing the work to become a refuge for what's right and for what's fine and for what's in the environment that has nowhere else to find rescue and safety, to find that with you. Sometime with young life, sometime with the elderly. So there is a sense of tremendous richness and versatility. This is already a long recording, so I'd risk saying something more for one more thing for the person that stayed with us to this point. One of the aspects of the work that I do, have continued to do, feel called into, and certainly in practicing importance, is the search to discover and the search to frame the inquiries, the questions that will help us take the next step forward. And one of the questions I've been grappling with that have come my way from a younger person who asked, why are there so many walls breaking all over the planet? And I've been thinking about it because in one way it's an understandable and legitimate question to ask under the distress of all that's occurring on the planet. And yet I've trained myself to search to find a way to frame inquiries that help us indeed take the next step. And so one of my realizations is that when we ask why are there so many wars breaking up now, in a way we're asking a displaced question. The reason we are asking a displaced question is because there have been wars from the beginning of time that plagued humanity. And rather than explaining or justifying why there are wars, I choose to reframe and ask a different question. I ask, what are the conditions that distance us from being able to access the interior ecology, the interior experience inside the human condition where peace within peace may be found? I ask, what are the conditions that seem to reproduce old wars inside new times? And I ask myself, what would have to be true? What would have to be true inside the human condition, inside even the one person, such that an ecology can be accessed, such that an ecology can be found, so that the conditions that create war cannot be reproduced. So I choose to reverse the question. And sure, I ask, what is it? And what is it about the human condition that we see sometime in ourselves and then we see with groups of people? The need to continue to hold on to grievances, to resentments, to hatred. What is it? There must be something that is being received in return when a person or a group of people hold on to being so deeply identified with pain, with grievances. Many situations can be understood. You can logically reason as to why that is the case. But I ask, what is it that we receive in return when we hold on to our grievances and to our pains? And what could help us release the need to hold on to these interior persuasions? And I dare say entity structure that sometimes possesses our consciousness. So these are some of the questions I ask myself as I work to sublimate and reframe the impossibility of the human predicament. And one of the starter leads that I'm getting is that we have, humanity that is, has been for so long separated from the natural enhancements and the natural well-being and the natural essences and presences that we are actually never meant to be separated from. And that evokes in me and invokes in me the need, a needful need to see where can I be a better source in myself and better tethered and connected to those essences and presences that can produce well-being in me and can produce better well-being with the people I interact with every day. And to the point that Bob made, yes, I find my shortfalls every day. I find the moment by moment when I'm not as patient or as compassionate as I would want to be. And hey, a lot of the time I can justify, but it's not about justifying my shortfalls. It's about a deep realization that we have somehow been separated for too long from the harmonies, the natural harmonies that the human system was meant to be imbued by. And I believe that the reason I asked for your help today in bringing your voice into this exploration is because if we are to solve the civilizational challenges on the table, like all of you articulated and asked us to become the little circuit breakers that make a change in sometime mid-sentence, sometime mid-conversation, sometime, as some of you described, just deciding to pause and take a deeper breath, slow down, as Paul said. That if we are to solve those challenges, we won't solve those challenges with the same mindset that created these challenges. Somehow we are seeking to do the threefold retethering of allowing people to be who they are, to discover who they are so they get grounded deep in themselves. Allowing them with that to find the bounty, the endless gifts that generations before us left for us, be able to harvest and harness that and release what's no longer needed. Then being courageous enough and daring enough to look each other in the eye, to look the present and the future in the eye, and say, right, it begins here with each one of us. What is the new world we can imagine we are called to co-create? There is a sense in listening to each one of you, in the presence that you're cultivating in your life, that there is a new epoch that's arising. There is inside it exhilarating possibilities that are emerging, that it does bring new ways of healing and new creativity and so much more. And it needs people who are courageous enough and daring enough in themselves, in ourselves, to take responsibility for this moment in our life and invite so much that we are surrounded by to be part of the co-creation of a new tomorrow. So I thank you for participating in this experiment, and I feel enriched by so much that has joined us, to be continued on another time, another portal's exploration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye all. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Along with our website at portalsofperception.org, Portals is also available on YouTube and on all podcast platforms, as well as social media. You can become an active member and join the conversation in community events. And you can help us get the word out by liking this content and by sharing it with your friends.